Hi, my name is Donna Swanson. I'm the Executive Director and founder of Focus Center for Autism and the Fresh Start School. My husband and I started this it'll be 20 years in 2020, and we're very, very proud of what we do. The Focus Center for Autism has programs for kids and young adults with autism and anxiety disorders and school phobias, et cetera. The Fresh Start School is a special ed program that's been approved for 3 years by the state, doing wonderful things with kids. And I like our model of care. We've helped at least 1,000 families, and we've done so many good things for our kids. Our kids are going to college. Some of them have jobs, but that takes a lot of work on our part. One of the things that I'm here with Miss Sharon Cable, who is one of our mothers, and also now she's been a volunteer for Focus for 15 years and now is an employee of Focus. And Sharon and I have done so many panels together. Sharon's run parent support group. She's running our parent support group now, which is an open parent support group. But we've been getting a lot of questions from parents, and just thought you and I could just sit and talk about all the different things, the questions that you get asked and I get asked, and there's a lot of worries out there about parents and their kids and what's going to happen to their kid, and because no matter where you fall on the spectrum, there just doesn't seem to be enough services.
That's true.
So, like, what kind of questions do you get from parents?
I think right now, most of the questions we're getting, or a vast majority, are about young adults.
About young adults.
What happens when my child is done with school, they finish their transition program, they're 21, and they don't have a job, and they're not in college? I think there's a big gap in that transition period, the 18 to 21-year-olds. They're working, they're going to school, but then when they graduate, they have nothing.
And they feel horrible.
Yeah.
They had a life, and now all of a sudden they don't have, and it's the socialization, the feeling of not belonging. And I have to say that's one of the things that Focus does really well, is we provide a community for our kids. So we have kids that are coming back and seeing us 20 years later, which is kind of wonderful. We have that's where Facebook comes in. We have a young guy that was with us right in the beginning, and he found me on Facebook, and he wants to come out. He is a truck driver. He said, I want to come out and show my rig and show people that people with autism can do some things. Yeah. And he was lucky he was able to find something, but it's really hard to find something.
It's very hard. We've started some young adult social groups for that age group, age 21 and up, and we're trying to do some recreational things, and we hope to move on to jobs and residential programs, but right now there's not a whole lot out there.
Right, and parents also ask us a lot about like the developmental milestones, and just because your child is 21 or 23 doesn't mean, or 25 or whatever, doesn't mean that he's really, that's his chronological age.
Yeah, exactly.
Whenever we talk to parents, we ask about where do you see this child, that your youngster developmentally, because you don't want to ask a 21-year-old who really is functioning more like a 3-year-old. You don't want the expectations of a 21-year-old, right?
Yeah. And that's why kids who are older, 21, 25, and don't have a driver's license doesn't mean they won't have one in the future. We have kids, young adults, that are getting their driver's license at 30,
right,
35.
And some of the kids that I know that are getting their driver's license said they would never get their driver's license.
Yeah.
And what was the obstacle was they could drive with their parents, they could drive with somebody they knew, but then when they had to go with the driving instructor, that changed everything because of anxiety. Yeah. And I think that's also something that we talk a lot about with parents, and how anxiety affects their kids' lives and what they can do to help mitigate the anxiety. Like, what are some of the things that you've had to do to help with Alex, or the advice that you give to other people to help with the anxiety?
Physical activity helps for a lot of people.
Right.
Doing some kind of exercise, or at least going for a walk, getting some physical activity. Eating on a regular basis, protein snacks, every 2-3 hours so you don't get so hungry and you don't get low blood sugar. For anxiety,
because
things like
anxiety
stress
really,
tools.
it makes you metabolize faster. So, you know, a lot of times our kids are hungry at 10:30 in the morning, even though they've already had breakfast. And a lot of places will say, well, no, you don't get anything. We always, if a kid is hungry, we feed them because, we try to stay ahead of the battle so that they aren't getting so anxious that once you get to a certain point, they just go on tilt.
Yeah.
But they are picky eaters, right?
Yeah, yeah, that's a problem. But I think you should just keep reintroducing foods, and eventually, you know, they'll try one thing or two things, and eventually I think that gets better for most kids.
Right. But they don't usually choose, I almost think many of them have an allergy to vegetables. What do you think?
Yeah, that's the last thing I think that kids
That's the
will try.
final frontier for kids on the spectrum, is to start eating vegetables. Although we have one kid, and I love to read the updates because he had broccoli for a snack. He's one of your favorite kids too, and he loves to eat vegetables. I got a zucchini I grew today, and I'm gonna fry it up for everybody for a snack. So I love it when they do like their vegetables.
Yeah. And we did try a salad bar, and I knew that was risky. And I had a couple of different kinds of lettuce, and I had a lot of the traditional things: cucumber, tomato, carrots, celery, and things. And I put in some different beans and eggs and chopped meats and things and
Did they
nuts.
eat it?
And I was really surprised when the whole group was doing it. Everybody started with lettuce and then added some things, and everybody tried at least one new thing.
Right.
And the only thing that wasn't popular was hearts of palm. That wasn't very popular.
And again, I bet
think
you
it's too soft.
that was sensory.
Yeah,
It
I think so.
did not agree with them. So one of the things, a tip is to not always ask them what they want. Sometimes if you just put it out,
Present it.
and then they'll eat it.
And 9 times they might not taste it, and that 10th time, maybe he'll try it.
Right. Well, we can go back to Alex, you know, your son Alex, and he apologizes all the time because he says, I'm sorry, I was a picky eater. And Alex is, how old is he going to be in September?
26.
Okay, so Alex has been with me and doing panels and things like that since he was 11 years old.
15 years.
15 years, and he still remembers, when we first started, it was like popcorn and string cheese?
Plain pasta with nothing on it.
Plain pasta with nothing.
And string cheese.
And then the first thing, but he tried things because he saw other people trying things.
Yeah.
And now he'll eat eel.
Yeah.
And now he
Sushi.
calls sushi, and now he'll eat hamburger. I mean, he loves a bacon cheeseburger. He says it's heaven on a bun.
Yeah, that's his favorite thing.
Yeah, that's his favorite. But again, like you said, some things you just keep trying. And also what's difficult for parents, and they'll say to us, you know, something worked in the morning, but it didn't work in the afternoon or whatever. And we see that all the time. And you just keep going back to the drawing board and
Try it again.
and you're trying to figure out why it didn't work. You know, like what is different? What is their behavior? Because behavior is communication, right? So you want to try and figure out. And that's what a lot of parents ask us too, is how do we, are we at one? Just check, I'm just playing with you, Sharon. What was I saying?
We were talking about the unpredictability. Sometimes kids on the spectrum can do one thing in the morning and then 2 hours later they can't do it. And I think that's really hard for teachers and paraprofessionals and even parents. When something was working and now 2 hours later it doesn't work. They can't do something they did before.
So you need to have a bag of tricks.
Yeah.
And you always need to have plan B. And parents are really the experts, I find, in their kids. So I really like to work closely with parents because they know what their kids like and what they don't like. And once I can figure out from you and from other parents what's going on, then we can come up with our ideas and see what happens.
Work together.
And work together, as a team. So what has been some of if you had to give some of your most practical advice, one of the things Alex said to me today is he says, you have to have hope. He says, I'm a guy with a lot of hope. And he said, if you don't have hope, you got nothing.
Yeah.
And I think that that's very wise of him, because if we didn't have hope, it's
That's
hard to
true.
keep going.
And never give up on him.
Never give up on
He
him.
says, don't ever give up on me. Just
Right.
keep trying, keep working.
So what are some of your biggest, couple of your best tips?
Oh my. Don't be frustrated with the unpredictability. Most of the things that you don't like, the behaviors you don't like, are due to the autism.
Right.
So try to work with it and find out what the problem is and see if you can get around it somehow. Picky eating, I mean, it's usually not the worst problem you have.
Right.
So just keep plugging along with that, offer new things, and eventually they probably will try it. Most kids I found have gotten better just with time. You know, eventually they get better and they eat a wider variety of things. And
I think it's
choose your
mostly important that you try and get some protein, that you
Yeah.
get nourishment rather than you try
Doesn't
and keep
matter
them
what
nourished.
it is, but yeah, even if you have to repeat some of the same foods or hide foods in smoothies and things like that.
Right. Do you remember the 3 things that Alex said that he said his best advice was to have patience?
Yes, have patience. Oh no.
I can't remember what the other one was.
I can't remember either.
But
It slipped my mind.
he said even though you may not think you're helping me, the fact that you tried is what's really important.
That's right.
And have patience and accept me where I am.
Yeah.
And and also I really try to work with parents on the fact that stop and think, is it your dream or is it their dream? Like one of our girls said, I'm not lonely. I'm alone, but I'm not lonely. It's more effort. My mom wants me to have a lot of friends. I have one friend, and that's okay
enough.
with me.
Yeah.
Because
hard
it's
for
too much social anxiety. It was too much for her to try and do all that. It was things that you thought were fun for her, like ballet lessons, etc. They were
fun.
torture for her.
Yeah.
So it's good to separate from what you think is the ideal childhood to the childhood that you just want to make it the best that you can for them.
For them, yeah. And it's true. It's not always the same as what you think you wanted at that age.
Right.
You know, I wanted more friends and more activity. Alex is happy with one friend, and he'll say they're not sleeping over, right? They're going home, because he doesn't want his friends to sleep over. That's too long. It's too much for him. So
it's very important that you really listen to your child, and parents are pretty good about that, or try to be. But you have to also understand what it is that they're saying, because they say things in a different way.
Yeah.
They by not leaving the car, like we were given an example earlier today about a kid that wouldn't leave the car, and they thought it was, oftentimes they think the behavior is oppositional, and it turned out to be more of a safety thing. He didn't feel safe leaving the car. So I think it's really important to try and understand what's underlying the behavior, so that you can come up with the right intervention. But parents they have no matter where we go, they seem to have a lot of the same concerns, and that is the welfare, like you said, socialization, recreation, employment. And what's going to happen when parents are no longer able to be around?
That's the biggest nightmare. That's what keeps most parents up at night. What's going to happen when we're gone? Mm-hmm. Who's going to take care of our sons or daughters? Who's going to be there? And financial too.
Financial. And it's hard to get services. First of all, there's not a lot of services. Sure. And second of all, why is it so hard to get services, do you think?
Very good question. Probably there isn't enough money, and even if you're deemed eligible for a service, it doesn't mean they can give it to you because there isn't enough money there. So we've heard both. You're not eligible, or you're eligible and there's
But
no
we got
money.
nothing.
Yeah, we have nothing.
You're eligible.
Or there just is no program.
But there's nothing for you.
Nothing appropriate for your son or daughter. So.
And that's hard. And again, that's one of the reasons why we want to really try to work on transition, because there's a lot of young adults that have a lot to offer that are just sitting at home not doing anything.
Yeah.
We have one kid that has been working at Walgreens Distribution Center for well over 10 years. I think he's missed one day. Yeah. That's it. And so they can be very loyal, dedicated, hardworking.
Punctual, all those good things.
All the good things. But they do require a little finessing. Like if they may need a break, right? A sensory break. Mm-hmm. What would you consider a sensory break?
Well, it could be as simple as a little walk.
Right.
Could be you have some kind of fidget tool that you want to manipulate in your hands, that you need some space. Could be you just need some quiet space. You need to sit somewhere and just be quiet for 5 minutes. Depending on the individual. I mean, it has to be something that can fit in at the workplace.
Right.
If you're at work, or even at school, I guess. But it varies person to person.
It varies person to person. But it is important that it gets that need gets met, because
Absolutely.
what happens when you don't meet that need?
You may wind up with a meltdown at work or at school, and then
Right.
you might lose your job
Right.
over that. You know, it's something that simple that could have been corrected if people knew ahead of time. So you really need to disclose if you're on the spectrum and you did get a job. If you disclose your peculiarities or your special needs, then probably they'll be able to accommodate you rather than a meltdown.
Right, and we want to avoid meltdowns because they take a lot out of everybody. They take a lot out of the person that's having it, the people that are around, and if you're out in the public and you happen to see somebody having a meltdown, I always ask, how can I help? Because a lot of people assume that kid's just being a brat, but a lot of times it's really a sensory overload or some trigger that sent them into orbit. And when people need to assume goodwill and try and understand that these are real life problems.
Assume that this child might have some kind of special needs, might be on the autism spectrum, and the parents are doing the best they can trying to get them through the situation.
Right, exactly. So at Focus, we have only 6 rules, and I like that because it helps organize. Kids don't need to hear every minute, you can't do this, you can't do that. That gets very frustrating.
Yeah.
So we have 6 rules. They make sense. The first one is to stay safe. The second one is to follow directions. Third one is to have a good attitude, because that is up to them, how that day is going to go. Okay. The fourth is to show respect. Fifth is to take responsibility. And number 6 is to have fun. So at Focus, we just keep hitting those home. You know, we don't say you can't do this. We say, are you being safe? Are you following directions? Are you? And so then they start to learn what these are rules for life. Yeah. And they start to learn them, and it makes sense to them.
We still have them on our refrigerator. There are life rules.
They're life rules.
They work for every situation, really.
That's right. You can, and I just think it's so. The more you can simplify the world so that they can understand it, the better it is. And that we all should assume goodwill. That these kids don't want to have meltdowns and act out or whatever just for the heck of it. And they want to be the best that they can be, and they want to be understood. They want to be understood, right? That's very important. Yeah. They say, meet me halfway, I'm not broken.
Give me a square hole for my square peg kind of thing.
That's right.
Yeah, let me fit in.
Well, God, that's what one kid said to me.
I know.
You remember that?
Yeah, that's right.
He said, you know, what is with this square peg and a round hole thing? He goes, I don't get, what's so hard? Why can't there be a square peg for a square hole for a square peg? And it really, he said, that would be so simple, but life is not like that. Life is not like that. But, you know, I am very pleased, and one of the things that you're doing now that you're at Focus is you're running the parent support group, and you're also doing a lot of outreach too, correct?
Trying to reach parents and see if they want to join the parent support group. Parents call with questions about the school, about after-school program, and then about young adult services as they get older. Parents have a lot of questions.
Yeah, they do. And also, one of the things is we would like parents to start thinking about transition earlier, right?
Absolutely.
Like, what's your advice on that?
Well, the earlier you think about it, the better, actually. If you think about a young child, your typical kids, you would have them do chores around the house. You would start them learning to take care of themselves, taking care of their own hygiene, taking care of cleaning up after themselves, preparing for the next day. They learn to make their own lunches. Then as kids get a little older, they often have volunteer jobs. Kids on the spectrum really benefit from that.
Yep.
Having some practice at what does a job look like. If you have a volunteer job, you do have to be on time, you have to learn some skills, how to behave on a job. And then when you get older, when you get to be around 13, you really should be talking about it with the school. What are you looking to do? Is your child going to graduate at 18? Are they going to have an extended program with a transition program? Are they planning to go to college? Are they planning to work? A little bit of both. We really need to know what direction you think your child is going in. And you can always modify it if you need to along the way.
I'm smiling because I remember being at your house and you talked to Alex about when he was in high school about, maybe starting to do his laundry, et cetera. And he said, Mom, I'm a student right now and that's my job. And that's all he could handle. Like that was his focus. He goes, laundry will have to come after that.
Yeah. First he's a student. Even a job. He couldn't even work on a resume or, how to look for a job or interview skills until he finished the academic part. Right. So we had to do all the academics, and then we started on the work skills.
I had one kid who I wanted him to come during his vacation. When we had a program during vacation, he goes, I am a vacation boy. He said, I am not coming in to the program. He said, when I'm on vacation, I'm on vacation. You know what? It's been awesome for us to be here and to talk. And there's so much that we could talk about. And it's just, let's leave with a positive thought. You have a positive thought. I'll have a positive thought.
All right. Let me think. You go first.
Oh, you're trying my trick on me. Huh?
Yeah.
My positive thought is I absolutely love the people on the spectrum. I learned so much from them. I appreciate their honesty, and there isn't anything that I wouldn't do for them. They bring absolute joy and love to my heart.
Okay. And I would say everybody has gifts to offer. You just have to take the time to listen to the person and get to know them and find out what their gifts are, and maybe not worry so much about the areas of difficulty and focus more on the gifts and the things that
is
people
perfect.
like and enjoy and can do well.
Focus on the gifts and the positive, and build on the strengths. Because that's what we all like to do too. I mean, I want to know what I'm doing right. I don't always want to know what I'm doing wrong. I want to build on the things I do right.
Absolutely.
So we are about ready to wrap it up for today. Can you believe it went by pretty fast?
Well, thanks for coming.
And please check us out on at Focus Center for Autism, and we would love you to like our Facebook page, which is Focus Autism, I think. I'm so bad at this stuff, but I think I got it right. We appreciate Nutmeg so much for having us on, and thank you very much.